Hello, this is Robert Baca, the Socorro genealogist. A few weeks ago, I did a presentation in Socorro for the Socorro Historical Society called Life and Death in Small Town, New Mexico. I decided I'm going to make it into a series of short videos. Basically, what the series is going to be are short vignettes. They may be obituaries, they may be short stories about various members of the community of Socorro and surrounding area, specifically the Socorro Land Grant, Socorro County, maybe even going into Catron and Sierra and so forth. And so my first one today, the first of my short videos, is for Pedro Antonio Baca. Now, Pedro Antonio Baca was married to my fourth great-grandmother, Maria Guadalupe Torres. And on March 21st of 2009, I did a presentation on her. Now, she is my ancestor through her first husband, who was Francisco Antonio Garcia, who was descended from one of the founders of Socorro, the Socorro Land Grant. And Pedro, likewise, is also descended from a founder. I'll put some information on the bottom of this video in the comments to give you more context on this. But today I'm going to talk about Pedro Antonio Baca. Now, if you go to the San Miguel Church in Socorro, New Mexico, you'll see two plaques, one on the left and one on the right. And I think as you're walking up towards the altar, I think the one on the left is for Pedro Antonio Baca, and the one on the right is for Maria Guadalupe Torres de Baca. I think it has her as Maria Guadalupe T. de Baca. Okay? And they were major, what is the term? I can't think of the term, but they were basically the ones who took care of the church in the probably the mid 1800s and such. And so their plaques are there. And so let me go ahead. I'm going to read you the obituary, and I'll give you a little context on this. You can find this on my blog, the Baca Douglas Genealogy and Family History blog. I posted it on 25th of March in 2009. Again, I'll put links in the comments. And I transcribed this. I wrote on here, the following transcription is an obituary that I found on 12 November 1887, Socorro Bullion newspaper. It's a newspaper that was made specifically for those who were into mining and stuff. If you ever look at the newspaper, it's really interesting. It talks about various mining mines that were open and who owned them and so forth. It's a really interesting. You can find this on newspapers.com, or the Chronicling America is free. You can find it there. The obituary is published in English. Many of the facts mentioned in the article are accurate, although a burial record for Pedro Antonio Baca indicates that he died on 7 November 1887 rather than on the 5th as mentioned in the obituary. Okay? And you'll find this on page 3, column 3 of the Bullion. Okay? Communicated. Editor, Socorro Bullion. Be kind enough to allow me to use your columns to make a brief sketch of the life of one of our most prominent citizens, lately departed from amongst us. Don Pedro Antonio Baca, who died the 5th instant, okay, in other words, the 5th of November, was born at the old town of Belen, in the county of Valencia, on the 21st day of May, 1804. His parents being Don Juan Dionisio Baca and Doña Maria Rita Pino, both descendants of the most ancient and well-known families in this territory. From Belen, he came with his parents to Socorro when the town was resettled in 1816. Here he married his surviving wife, Doña Guadalupe Torres. in 1834, their union being blessed with 8 children, 5 girls and 3 boys. Of the former, only one is living, while 2 of the latter survive. On Don Juan Jose and the other Don Severo A. Baca, both well-known businessmen in this community. Soon after the organization of the territory under the American government, Mr. Baca entered the ranks of democracy, which political faith he followed as one of its staunch adherents throughout his life, without fear and scrupulously favoring none in detriment to his principles. He was elected for the first time probate judge of Socorro when this county embraced the whole of Valencia, Lincoln, and Doña Ana counties in 1851. At other different times, he was elected to fill the same position, serving in all 4 terms until 1868, his friends desiring for him to be elected a certain ticket compelled him against his will to accept the nomination for probate clerk, to which office he was elected by the largest majority ever before or since polled by any candidate for the office of this county. Mr. Baca followed the mercantile business all his life, amassing a considerable fortune and being distinguished in all his dealings for his honesty and fairness towards everyone, rich or poor. Of late years, on account of old age, he could not attend to business, but was content to live on hard-won savings of his past. With Mr. Baca disappears the last remaining link that bound us to the early history of our town, and the last of the original grantees of the much-abused Socorro Grant. He was indeed one of the most prominent landmarks of this county, historically as well as politically speaking. By his native neighbors and acquaintances, he was looked up on as a common counselor and advisor, being regarded as by right their arbiter in family and other disputes, and his opinions and decisions were always full of wisdom, conscientiousness, and upright. Conscious and upright. He was indeed like unto a kind father to his people, who one and all this day mourn his loss. Mr. Baca was more than anything else a thorough Christian gentleman, in every sense of the term, being always foremost as a devout and pious Catholic in every religious ceremony. He was zealously assisted by Reverend Father Lestra up to his last moments, and died a firm believer in the teaching of his church and the future reward of heavenly bliss promised by our Lord to every true Catholic. He breathed his last surrounded by his numerous descendants and a host of sorrowing friends and acquaintances, beloved of all, hated of none, and at peace with the whole world, as might truthfully be said. The deceased became a member of the Catholic society known as the Knights of St. Michael. About 1 year after its organization, the society took charge of funeral ceremonies, which were very impressive. Sorry, that was my cat. And well attended by many people from the city, as well as from neighboring towns. The band of the society and all of its members, preceded by their standard and in full regalia, took a prominent part of the procession from the residence of the deceased to the Catholic Church, wherein the remains were deposited with all the usual splendor of the Catholic Church, on which occasions there to await the last judgment day, where the first blast of Gabriel's trumpet we shall all come forth to answer for our good and bad deeds to the Supreme Judge of all. R.I.P., a sorrowing friend. And that is, again, a very accurate depiction. Obviously, there's a little editorializing there. I always love reading old obituaries like this. This is back in the 1880s, 1887 specifically. And it's, he was obviously a very wealthy person. His family, not just his sons, but also his wife's sons and his daughters, for that matter, were prominent members of Socorro. I'm not descended from him, but I am descended from his wife, from the Garcias. And it's a really interesting story. And so, again, I hope that you enjoyed this. If you're interested in Socorro genealogy, I will periodically, or actually very sporadically, present this life and death in small town New Mexico. Okay, and I call it small town New Mexico because it's not just Socorro. It could be Limitar, it could be Belen, it could be something in Catron County. It could be something in Sierra. I could talk about Monticello, for instance. One of these days, I'm going to talk about the Bourguignons. And a lot of those families, the Montoyas and such, went to Monticello, which is southern New Mexico, near Tierce. No, not Thomas Jefferson. Was it Thomas Jefferson's house, Monticello? No, probably named after it, but that's not what it is. It's near Tierce, Truth or Consequences. Anyhow, he was a prominent member of Socorro County. And again, I will put some links to give you some more context. You'll be able to read this based on what I posted on my blog. And I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much.